For the time that's ours this morning, I'd like to speak to you from this thought: when God gets tired. When God gets tired. As a seminary professor, I have the opportunity to share with students about the characteristics of who God is. As a professor of preaching, I have the opportunity to help students to articulate their faith in God. When I ask students about their concept of God, they typically say God is omnipotent, meaning God has all power. God has the ability to do anything but fail, as they say in the churches where I'm from. God having the power to create. God having the power to motivate. God having the power to infuse life. It's one of the attributes that many of my students claim when they speak about God. When I ask my students about God, they'll say God is all-knowing. God is omniscient. God knows all. There's nothing that happens that falls outside of the knowledge of God. Human beings in their finite ability to grasp reality are seeking to find the knowledge that God has had since the beginning. So God has all power. God is all-knowing. And this God is everywhere. God is omnipresent. So God knows all. God has all power, and God is everywhere. How do we find ourselves in the first chapter of Isaiah? The first chapter of Isaiah seems to provide a way of us to understand God in the midst of our frailty. For it is in this first chapter of Isaiah in which the prophet is calling the sins of the people into public view. He is saying to them that the sins that you all revel in, the sins that you bask in, the ways in which you dehumanize self and neighbor are putting you in tremendous conflict with the purposes of God. This God who has all power, this God who in Genesis 1 set this world in motion and created the universe that we are still seeking to understand. It is this same God who Isaiah pens with pen and parchment. He says that God has grown weary. Now it's hard for us to imagine a God who knows all, God who has all power, God who can do anything, to weary by the actions of human beings. But Isaiah is doing what scholars would call anthropomorphism. He provides human qualities for God. For the songwriter says that God is awesome and God is due the praises of God's name. Another writer says that the way that the heavens are from the earth, the ways in which God's thoughts differ from our thoughts. Yet, it is this same God, penned by Isaiah, who is weary by the actions of human beings. The problem is that human beings are engaged in a relationship with God. We are not just robots to do God's will, but we are in active relationship with God. God lives in us, breathes through us, gives us the power to live out the call that's been placed upon our life. But yet it is in this relationship that we can disappoint and frustrate the purposes of God. Maybe you know what it's like to frustrate relationships. If you've been married or been in an intimate relationship with someone, though you may love them, and though they may love you, there gets to a point where that frustration begins to weigh upon the quality of a relationship. God being in relationship with humanity, God breathing breath into Adam, and from that point on, God wrestling with this relationship with this flawed flesh, finds God's self in a place in which Isaiah says God is growing weary with bearing the frailties and the frustrations of humanity. Now, what do we mean by these frustrations and frailties? Isaiah is saying it is the way that we live out our dedication that frustrates God? How can we live in a world of injustice but be so acquainted with it? Those are the ways that frustrate God. How can we take advantage of the least, the last, and the left behind and be okay with it, knowing that God is the creator of all? How can we allow people who we say are our sisters and our brothers to live at the boot end of oppression, and we pass on by as if we don't see it? It is in these ways that the immortal God grows weary with our human frailty. It almost seems as if we prefer a world that is unjust, as long as we are able to be on the right side of injustice that day. It is that feeling of malaise. It is that feeling of disconnectedness with neighbor that allows us to live this life. And though people are being shot randomly and haphazardly, we go on about our days as if we have not seen or heard anything. Young men and young women are dropping out of school and finding no hope in the world that we have propped up as optimistic and full of opportunity. Yet, God's purposes remain frustrated by our inactivity. It is in this vein that we find ourselves looking face to face with this Isaiah text. Because God is saying, I don't care about your church services with your lovely music. I don't care how much money that you give. I don't care how much time you spend. I don't care how much you shine up all the accoutrements of worship. Those things are irrelevant to me when the ways in which you treat neighbor and self are woefully inadequate for the days that you live in. Maybe my sister, my brother, you are like me and you find your heart broken by the state of our world. You wonder if this world is really your home. Maybe it's that feeling that motivated the writer of Hebrews to speak about the faith that gives us the ability to persevere in the midst of our frailty. For the Hebrew writer says that faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. It is this ability to conceive and live into this vision of God's reality, even though we don't seem to have it in our hands. That ability to persevere, that ability to call God's blessings down from the ethereal realm and make them manifest, that becomes our way of challenging our lethargy and our laziness and our desire to let the world go by as long as you don't bother me. So as the writer of Hebrews begins to write and speaks about faith, he said, now these are the heroes of faith and the sheroes of faith. But what I find interesting is at the end of this Hebrews passage. For at the end of this Hebrews passage, I find it very key. And I want to quote it for your hearing. It says that, but as it is, they, these heroes of faith, they desire a better country. That is a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God. For God is not ashamed to be called their God. Imagine God of creation being ashamed of our actions. It's one thing for your mother to be embarrassed because you don't know how to act in the store. It's another thing for the God that blows breath in your lungs with every inhale and exhale to find your actions so reprehensible that God has to say, I don't think I know her. And I think I know him. It is this God who wearies by our pursuit of injustice and our gain for greed. It is this same God who can be ashamed by our lack of desire to be all we've been called to be. But is in the faith of living out our purpose, is the faith of preparing this world for the coming of Christ that gives us the motivation to live differently. It gives us the power to turn the forces of death into the forces of life, and not to allow the malaise that situates our age to be our soul's disposition, knowing that living in this turned down, in this docile, in this mediocre sense of soul, places us in complete contradiction to the purposes of God. So, how are we able to not weary God with our actions? Our gospel gives us a clue. The gospel talks about us being ready for the inevitability, yet uncertain time of God's arrival. It is in this space that we must position ourselves. Why is that? Jesus says, in short, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. If you keep yourself in a place of constant preparation, willing to live out the ways in which God has given us to live, if you live in this ready state, dressed for action, have your mind prepared and organized to do God's will, it is in this act of faith. It seems like an act of faith to tell the world about a Savior that is seemingly yet to come. It is an act of faith to tell this world that the forces of death and destruction are not the final say in what we encounter day to day. It is an act of faith for us to gather together as a church body to be able to marshal our resources so that we can make a difference in this world. It is an act of faith, my sister and my brother, to tell the world that we are going to be an example of what it means to be an active Christian body. It is an act of faith for us to stay in the ready position when it seems that the world is falling down around us. This act of faith calls us into account. It holds the mirror of self-reflection right to our face so we're able to observe the places where we need to grow. Because I don't want to be one that is accounted for by being an ashamed son of the Lord. I don't want it to be said about me that I wearied the Lord because I knew right, but I wouldn't do right. And if I care about my sister and my brother, then there's a responsibility that I have to live a life that calls me into account and brings me into closer relationship. Because if I neglect you, and you, I'm really neglecting God in my presence. I, as a preacher, struggle, my sister and my brother, because I don't have all the answers, no matter what this road may tell me. Though I have a degree and a couple on the wall, that does not mean I know everything. But one thing I can tell you is that I know that God has been too good to me to leave God's words only on the page of the Bible. God has seen me through too much for me to live a life that brings shame to his name. God has seen me through too many adversities and too many trials for me to live a life of self-conscious selfishness. My life and your life, our lives as a collective, must be poured out to show this world that God is yet real. God's promises are always true. And if we're willing to live into this, we're willing to claim this as our inheritance, God will have no reason to be ashamed of our living. The weariness that Isaiah writes about dissipates in the wake of our action in the world. So my sister, my brother, the invitation is clear. The opportunity is yet before us. What will we do with the life that God has given us? How will we claim the faith that is our birthright? And how will we shape this world until it looks like the image of Jesus Christ? This is our call. This is our opportunity. This is our responsibility. I share this opportunity with you to make God proud. Amen.
Amen.